Have you ever sat with your phone in your hand, staring at a message you sent hours ago, maybe days ago, and wondered, did I say something wrong? Or did I suddenly stop mattering? Let me ask you something even deeper. If she once laughed with you, once replied quickly, once seemed emotionally open, why would a woman suddenly start ignoring a man who treats her well? And more importantly, what is the one move that quietly flips the entire emotional power dynamic? Today, I'm going to show you exactly what to do when a woman ignores you. Not to beg, not to chase, not to manipulate, but to rebuild your internal position so power naturally returns to you. And yes, by the end of this video, you'll understand how her ego collapses without you ever trying to break it. Let's start with something painful, but honest. When a woman ignores you, your mind immediately looks for reasons. You replay your messages, your tone, your jokes, your timing. You analyze every word like a crime scene. But here's the brutal truth. Women rarely pull away because of one message. They pull away because of a shift in emotional positioning, and most men never realize the moment it happens. Here's the mistake almost every man makes. The moment she becomes distant, he becomes more present. He sends another message. He checks her stories. He reacts to her posts. He becomes emotionally louder, not because he is weak, but because his nervous system is trying to regain certainty. This is human. But attraction is not human logic. Attraction responds to emotional structure. And when you move closer emotionally while she moves away, you are not building connection. You are collapsing polarity. Understand this clearly. Silence from a woman is not always disinterest. Very often, it is emotional testing, not a conscious test, not a manipulative game, a subconscious emotional filter. She is observing, how does this man emotionally regulate himself when I withdraw my attention? That is the real evaluation. Here is the first rule you must tattoo into your mind. Never try to correct distance with effort. Effort only works when emotional position is equal. But when one person becomes uncertain and the other becomes centered, the dynamic shifts. And this is where most men accidentally lose. Let me explain what breaking her ego actually means. It does not mean humiliating her. It does not mean being cold, rude, or cruel. It means this. You remove her unconscious leverage over your emotional state. That is what collapses ego, because ego feeds on emotional reaction. Now listen carefully. When a woman ignores you, and you do nothing impulsive, something very powerful happens inside her psychology. At first, nothing, but slowly, a quiet disturbance appears, because every human expects emotional consequence for emotional withdrawal. She expects less warmth, less availability, less emotional stability. But instead, she sees something else. You remain exactly the same internally. That is, deeply unsettling to someone who is unconsciously used to being the emotional center. So what should you actually do? Let me break it down clearly. Step 1, do not change your tone. This is critical. When she replies after ignoring you, your tone must not shift into relief, overwarmth, emotional reward, subtle gratitude. You don't say more. You don't explain. You don't emotionally overperform. You respond exactly how you would respond if nothing had happened, because emotional stability communicates status more loudly than confidence ever will. Why? Because attraction is not built on excitement. It is built on emotional predictability and psychological grounding. And when your tone stays neutral and grounded, you silently say, "My emotional center does not depend on your availability." That sentence never leaves your mouth, but it lands inside her nervous system. Step 2, do not ask for explanations. This destroys more attraction than anything else. Why didn't you reply?
Did I do something wrong?
Are you okay? These questions sound caring, but psychologically, they reveal something very specific. You are seeking emotional permission. You are positioning her emotional state above your emotional stability. High emotional value men do not require emotional reassurance to stay regulated. They observe patterns. They adjust behavior. They do not emotionally negotiate for attention. If a woman is interested, she does not need emotional interrogation. If she is losing interest, your questions cannot fix that. Only your emotional posture can. Step 3, redirect your emotional energy into structure. This is where the real power begins. Not distraction, not pretending, not forcing productivity, but rebuilding your internal structure. Structure means your schedule remains disciplined. Your routines remain intact. Your emotional regulation stays consistent. Your goals continue uninterrupted. This does something important. It shifts your identity away from relational validation, and identity is the deepest source of attraction. Here is something most men never realize. Women are drawn to emotional environments, not emotional intensity. If your emotional environment becomes unstable when one person withdraws, that environment becomes unsafe. Even if you are kind, even if you are loyal, even if you are emotionally available, safety in attraction is not gentleness. It is emotional predictability under pressure. Step 4. Remove microavailability. This is subtle, but extremely powerful. Microavailability is instant replies, immediate reactions, being always digitally present. You do not disappear. You do not ghost. You simply normalize delayed emotional access, not as a tactic, but as a reflection of a full life structure. When your availability becomes structured, her emotional system recalibrates, because access creates value, not distance, but access that is not guaranteed. Now, here is the moment that quietly breaks her ego, and I want you to listen very carefully. When she finally senses that you did not collapse, that you did not spiral, that you did not emotionally chase, that you did not seek reassurance, that you did not punish her, that you did not withdraw bitterly, and that you simply stayed grounded, something inside her psychology shifts. She starts questioning something dangerous to ego. Did my distance actually matter to him? That question is not about you. It is about her emotional influence. And when emotional influence feels uncertain, the ego destabilizes, because ego is built on one belief: I affect others emotionally. When that belief weakens, self-importance weakens, not consciously, emotionally. This is where many men sabotage the moment, because once she returns, they rush to reward her emotionally. They compensate for the distance. They create emotional imbalance again. Do not do that. Your power is in consistency, not contrast. Now let's talk about the most misunderstood part. You must not use this to manipulate. You must not use this to punish. You must not use this to control. If your intention is to dominate her emotions, you will fail long-term, because insecurity cannot create stability. The purpose of this behavior is not to win her back. It is to restore your emotional authority over yourself. That is what creates attraction. Let me tell you something very uncomfortable. Many men secretly enjoy emotional chaos. They feel alive when there is tension. They feel validated when someone pulls and pushes. But emotionally grounded men do not need drama to feel meaningful. And women feel this difference instantly. Now let's go deeper. Why ignoring her back does not work. Many dating coaches tell men, if she ignores you, ignore her harder. That creates emotional games, not emotional respect. Silence used as a weapon communicates fragility, because you are reacting. You are still being controlled by her behavior. True emotional power does not mirror. It remains steady. Here is the internal dialogue you must adopt, not out loud. Inside. If she engages, I engage warmly and calmly. If she withdraws, I remain stable and engaged with my life. No emotional swing, no emotional penalty, no emotional compensation. This neutrality is extremely rare, and rarity creates value. Now I want to explain something about women that most men misunderstand. Women do not emotionally attach to attention. They attach to emotional states. And when you consistently create calm, grounded, emotionally self-contained energy, her nervous system associates you with safety and emotional regulation. This becomes deeply attractive over time. This is especially powerful with emotionally intelligent women, because they are hypersensitive to emotional dependency. They detect it instantly. Let me ask you a question. When she ignored you, did you feel smaller? Did you feel uncertain? Did you feel invisible? That reaction is not about her. It is about your attachment to emotional validation. And this is exactly what you must dissolve. Not to become cold, not to become distant, but to become emotionally sovereign. The internal shift that changes everything. You must move from, I hope she replies, to, I am grounded whether she replies or not. That is the emotional pivot. That is the moment your posture changes. And posture is psychological before it is physical. Now here is something important. When she comes back, do not reference the silence. Do not joke about it. Do not hint at it. Do not subtly show that it affected you. Silence only has power if you give it narrative. You remove narrative. You remove emotional leverage. This is how ego loses grip. Not through confrontation, through irrelevance. Let me tell you what often happens next. She begins initiating. Small things at first. A message. A reaction. A casual check-in. Not because she suddenly wants you, but because emotional curiosity has been triggered. Your emotional stability created an unresolved question in her nervous system, and unresolved emotional questions pull attention, not effort. But here's the most important warning of this entire video. If she continues ignoring you consistently, over time, you must accept the information, not fight it, not reinterpret it, not emotionally negotiate with it. Attraction cannot be forced into existence, only invited. Self-respect is not staying. It is being willing to walk away calmly when alignment does not exist. That is the deepest form of emotional authority. Breaking her ego does not mean making her feel small. It means refusing to make yourself small. That is the difference. Now let's tie everything together clearly. When a woman ignores you, do this. Keep your tone unchanged. Do not seek explanations. Reinforce your life structure. Normalize delayed availability. Stay emotionally neutral. Do not reward inconsistency. Do not punish distance. Do not narrate silence. Do not chase emotional reassurance. Do not abandon yourself to win someone else. And now listen carefully to this final truth. The man who becomes emotionally unshakable does not need tactics. He becomes the environment. He becomes the emotional anchor. He becomes the reference point. Women do not fall for lines. They fall into emotional atmospheres. And your atmosphere is created by how you regulate yourself under emotional uncertainty. So if she ignores you, do not rush. Do not perform. Do not chase. Do not punish. Do not withdraw bitterly. Do not pretend you don't care. Care, but remain centered. Because the strongest psychological position is this. You are open, but not dependent. You are warm, but not reactive. You are present, but not available on demand. You are interested, but not emotionally invested without consistency. And when you live this way, something changes forever. You stop asking, how do I get her attention? And you start living as a man whose emotional presence is naturally valued. That is what quietly breaks ego. Not power, not control, not manipulation, but emotional independence. Most men get this wrong. They think attraction is about tactics, about saying the perfect line, waiting the perfect amount of minutes before replying, pretending to be busy, pretending not to care. But here's the uncomfortable truth. A woman does not lose interest because you are too kind. She loses interest when your emotional center becomes unstable around her. There's a difference. Kindness with stability feels safe. Kindness with emotional dependency feels heavy. When your mood rises and falls with her texts, when your confidence collapses because she replies late, when one cold message from her ruins your entire day, she doesn't feel admired. She feels responsible. And responsibility kills desire. Stability is seductive. Calm is magnetic. Structure is attractive. Think about it. In London, James meets Olivia. Things start strong. She laughs at his jokes. She texts first. Everything feels effortless. Then one day she goes quiet. James panics. He double texts. He sends a meme. Then another message. Did I do something wrong? Now his emotional center is no longer anchored in himself. It's anchored in her reactions. And she feels it. Not because she's cruel, not because she's playing games, but because emotional instability creates pressure. Now imagine the opposite. Same situation. She goes silent. This time he smiles. He breathes. He closes the chat. He goes to the gym. He works on his project. He meets his friends in Manchester. He continues building his life. Not to prove something, not to manipulate her, but because his life was full before she arrived. That energy is different. When you are emotionally grounded, silence does not feel like rejection. It feels like information. You observe. You don't react. You understand something most men don't. Attraction grows in space, not in pressure. So the next time a woman goes silent, don't interrogate it. Don't dramatize it. Don't chase clarity from someone who hasn't offered it. Return to your life. Return to your discipline. Return to your emotional grounding. Open that book. Finish that workout. Build that skill. Call your brother. Advance your mission. Because when your world remains steady without her validation, something powerful happens. She feels your gravity, not the gravity of control, but the gravity of a man who is centered, a man whose emotions are not easily shaken, a man who enjoys her presence but does not depend on it, a man who chooses her but does not need her to feel whole. And here is the paradox. The moment you stop needing her response is the moment your presence becomes felt the most, not because you disappeared, but because your energy stopped reaching out in desperation. Emotional independence is not coldness. It's strength without hostility, interest without anxiety, desire without attachment, and that is rare. So remember this, you are not trying to control her behavior, you are mastering your own. Read that again. Most men waste years trying to decode women. What did she mean? Why did she say that? Why is she acting different today? But the real shift happens when you stop studying her moods and start studying your reactions. Because control is weak. It's rooted in fear. Mastery is different. Mastery is quiet. You are not trying to manipulate outcomes. You are stabilizing your inner world. That means when she's warm, you don't get addicted. When she's distant, you don't collapse. When she tests you, you don't overreact. Your center stays intact. Imagine Daniel in New York. He meets Sarah. Chemistry is strong. She compliments him, calls him different. He feels on top of the world. A week later, she pulls back slightly, replies slower, less emojis, less enthusiasm. Old Daniel would spiral. He would try harder, overperform, overexplain, overanalyze. But grounded Daniel, he notices. He adjusts internally, and then he continues living. He still wakes up early, still trains, still works on his goals, still builds his network, still respects himself, because his identity is not built on her current mood, and that is emotional certainty. Emotional certainty is not arrogance. It's not indifference. It's not pretending you don't care. It's caring, without losing yourself. It's desire, without desperation. It's attraction, without anxiety. Women don't fall for perfect lines. They fall for emotional consistency. They feel safe around a man who doesn't wobble every time the wind changes. Because if your emotional state depends on her behavior, she becomes your emotional authority, and once she feels that power, attraction shifts, not because she wants to dominate you, but because instinctively she is drawn to stability, not instability. So in the end, the most attractive thing you can offer isn't strategy. It's not psychological tricks. It's not calculated silence. It's not perfectly timed responses. It's emotional certainty. The certainty that you will be okay with or without her. The certainty that your path continues regardless of her mood. The certainty that your life has structure, direction, and meaning beyond her attention. When you radiate that, you don't need to chase. You don't need to convince. You don't need to prove. Your presence speaks before your words ever do, and that presence feels different. Calm, grounded, unshakable. That is what makes her lean in. Not because you forced it, but because you became stable enough that she could feel it. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.